Hello, everyone. Okay. So today I'll be speaking about game development, mainly just like the evolution from where we started about 50 or so years ago to where we currently are with our PS5s and all those other cool things. So the question is, have you ever wondered like how much it has evolved since we started? My job is to take you guys through day to day. Cool. Yeah, just sorry. So game development is the art of creating games and describes the design, development, and release of a game, right? It may involve concept generation, designing, building, testing, releasing, all those other processes. But it also involves thinking about like the game mechanics, what the player rewards would be, what the levels are, how the levels are going to be progressed, difficulty, and so on. So yeah, let's go. We'll start off with the history, some cool facts. The first commercial game released in the US market was Pong. Um, it was invented by Nolan Bushnell and Ted Dubney. Otherwise, they were the Atari founders, right? So, no, now I'm going too fast. They were the Atari founders. Um, Otherwise known as the godfathers of gaming, but that's a bit controversial. Everyone has their own opinion. I suppose it could be this other guy named Bro, but yeah, everyone has their own opinion regarding it. The arcade game was a hit and kickstarted the gaming industry. This included like arcade games, your console games, your handheld games, but it was mainly Game Boy. Anyway, um, yeah, so notable milestones happened in the late 70s and early 80s. Space Invaders was an arcade game that was introduced in 1978. I was not born. That was 20 years probably before my arrival. So for those of you who remember, this must be a nice time. Another one was Donkey Kong, which was created by Nintendo. It also introduced the famous character Mario. I'm sure everyone is familiar with Mario. Yeah. The launch of Activision also happened in 1979, which was the first third-party game developer to be released to the public. Microsoft also released its first flight simulator game, but I have my own opinion. Another one was Pac-Man, one of my personal favorites, released way before my time as well, but still a good one. It was introduced to the US market in 1980. Yeah. So this is the first game that I was speaking about. This is Pong. This is what the old generation enjoyed way back in the 9. It then evolved to these home console games. So Atari released their first home console in the 70s as well, around the 70s. But that market saturated because it was only one game per console. You couldn't change games at the time. It was pretty boring. At some point, it got pretty boring. Yeah. Then arcade games became a hit because of the introduction of Space Invaders. Defenders then followed, so did Pac-Man. It became a big hit, and that caused like massive amounts of revenue to start pouring into the gaming industry, which was a big deal back then. Still is, because the gaming industry has been bringing in quite billions in revenue ever since. And then we have this. This was one of the first home console games that allowed for cartridges, right? So cartridges were like these little game things you could stick in, and it was different kinds of games. Kind of like what we would use when we download things. This was them downloading things. Cool. So it featured joysticks, the cartridges, multicolored games. It was also the start of the second generation of gaming. Pretty cool. And then we have the Game Boy and other handheld games. Many people, well, not many. I see one guy smiling, so definitely remembers. Cool, cool. The development of portable games was another important aspect of video games. The Game Boy static, simple design was readily accessible, and its stability allowed for a number of games to be created because of that. PC games. This is when I came into the picture. Yes. Yeah, everyone's familiar. I'll just keep along. And then we had one of the first PlayStations. So Sony introduced the first PlayStation in 1994. This hampered both Nintendo and Sega's console war, as well as making it difficult for newer companies to be introduced into the gaming market, right? They set a really, really high standard back then. They not only brought in the revolution of CD-ROM media, but also built in support for polygonal 3D graphic rendering. So Sony became the dominant console by 2009 because of that. And then the Nintendo Wii introduced the idea of motion controls. This led to a big boom in the market as well. But yeah, led to a big boom in the market as well, and resulted in Sony and Microsoft also creating their own versions of it. We know it as Kinect and PlayStation Move, and so on. Yeah. Cool. So then graphics, performance, and aesthetic then became a thing, right? Because now not only are you improving the experience, the gaming experience, you're also trying to appeal to your user. What would they like? What looks nice in them? You know, these days it's all about the aesthetic. So many gaming companies started looking at that aspect as well. For example, the PlayStation 5, they came up with more sleeker designs, and yeah, but everyone has their own opinion, I suppose. So then we move on to virtual reality. Virtual reality was also like a very major milestone in the gaming industry, just because it allowed gamers to have a more immersive experience, right, in terms of, yeah. So, immersive in like a first-person experience as well. Gamers both experience the influence the game environment through a variety of gaming devices, accessories, including the headsets, the sensor equipment, the handheld controls, and other things that I'm not 100% sure of at this time. Yeah. So then, on a last note, like all things in tech, the gaming industry has grown drastically, especially in the last 50 years. It constantly makes me wonder what the future of gaming could potentially look like between the advancements in virtual reality, AI, and the constant pursuit of ultra-realistic graphics. We may or may not see another major growth in the industry. Yeah.